myself a little bit more about our hobby of carnival lighting. So I thought of a couple, Jerry and Carol Curtis, and I called them, and they said they would be glad to do that. Or Jerry said he would be glad to do it. Then Carol started telling him how long he could talk. So they've been bad with that, but Carol, as you all probably know, is just recovering from major surgery. I talked to Jerry a little bit before the surgery, and you know, I don't know whether any of you have been out to where Jerry and Carol live, but you know, it starts snowing July the 31st. And if you've been to travel that road coming into Pagosa Springs, you cross Wolf Creek Pass, and there's always snow there. And then it's about 25 miles down to Pagosa Springs from the top of that hill. And it's downhill all the way, and you want to make sure you put your car in low gear when you start down, or you won't have any brakes when you get down to the bottom of the hill. But anyway, they live out there, and I think this year they usually get about 40 feet of snow in that area, and this year they didn't get too much snow. So Jerry and Carol live on 40 acres and 20 acres flat and 20 acres straight up. But this year it got cold, and they didn't have 3 feet of snow to cover the ground to keep from freezing. So I think that they had a little sewer problem there. So I think that Carol feigned getting sick so she could go to the hospital and deal with the sewer problem. So Jerry out there trying to jackhammer the ice out, and he couldn't even get it was so cold he couldn't even get the ice broken so he could fix the sewer system there. So I guess he implemented it some way, but I think that the main reason that Carol went to the hospital was because she was tired of the Kilroy cabinet out in the garage. But anyway, we're glad that they're here with us this evening, and I know that I've listened to several of their talks that they've given around the country, and I've always enjoyed that, and I'm sure that you will enjoy their talk this evening, and I'll let him explain to you his topic. And I believe that Carol is not going to be able to do the Vanna deal, so they have delegated that to Gail Ackworth, so he will be the Vanna on part of this program. So, Jerry and Carol, we thank you for being here and being our speakers. So now I'm going to turn it over to them for the program. Thank you.
Just a minute before we start, like I said, I just spent 15 days in the hospital. The doctor came in, said you're going to have surgery. My first words to him were, will I be able to travel by April 22nd? I do want to thank all of you for the prayers, the telephone calls, the visit that I had from the Snells, which was a great surprise, all the emails and the cards. It really means a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for that introduction, Bob. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the very first Hoga banquet of this new millennium. And Carol and I want to thank Bob Grissom and all of the officers and the board of directors of Hoga for asking us to be your presenters this evening. It's always an honor and a privilege to speak to such a group as is assembled here this evening. Can you hear me all right? Have I got that about right? You know, one of my favorite pastimes whenever we have a large gathering like this is to kind of sense the air for the vibes that's going around. You know, to see what everybody is thinking. And for some strange reason, as you came into the banquet room this evening, and most especially when Ken Osmond came in, I got a very strong, oh my God, look at all that glass. We're going to be here until midnight. But I can assure you that we have a lot of glass that we've brought with us, but we're not going to discuss all of that because Bob Grissom and Carol made me promise that I would hold this presentation to a reasonable length. And we, as I said, we have brought a lot of glass, and we will not be discussing all of that. So just to ease your mind somewhat, I'm sure that most of you will remember, beginning this past November, there was a Walmart commercial that ran on television beginning in November, and it ran right up until the day before Christmas. And in the commercial were three exuberant ladies that were scurrying about Walmart with their shopping carts, and they were filling their carts with Christmas presents. And then there was a scene in one of their homes where the ladies had gone to do their Christmas wrapping. And one of the ladies looked into the camera and said, "We do this every year because at Walmart you can find something for everyone." Now, like me, most of you grew up in an era where when you wanted a specific item, you went to a specific place to get it. As an example, if you needed nails or screws, you went to a hardware store. If you needed oil or a filter for your car, you went to an auto parts store. If you needed a loaf of bread, you would go to a bakery. If you needed some clothing, you would go to a dry goods store. And if you needed groceries, you would go to a grocery store. And so on and so on. We never had a catch-all store like Walmart, where you could go and you could find everything you could possibly need under one roof. Our parents would never have imagined such a wide variety of products and goods in one location. Yes, Sam Walton truly had a vision when he founded Walmart. And the huge success of this enterprise is mainly because at those stores, you can truly find something for everyone in quantity, in quality, and in variety, and most importantly, in cost. And Walmart caters to all classes of people, as well as to all age groups. One evening this past fall, as Carol and I sat watching television, I began to think about this program tonight and what I might use for its theme. And about that time, a commercial break was taken, and I heard in the background this Walmart commercial again, and it showed these ladies scurrying about and filling their carts again. And I heard that familiar theme: Walmart offers something for everyone. And immediately, the theme for this program came to me. Our wonderful hobby of Carnival glass can boast also that Carnival glass offers something for everyone. Look around you at this rather large gathering this evening. Each one of us has a distinct and sometimes different taste when it comes to collecting Carnival glass. As an example, when I think of Jack and Eleanor Hamilton, I think of miniatures and bottles. When I think of Bob Grissom, I think of white. When I think of Gail Eichhorst, I think of Peacock Tail and Mikado. Marie McGee makes me think of Millersburg. And John and Lucille Britt, whenever I think of them, they evoke thoughts of everything. And I suppose more than anyone else, John and Lucille Britt influenced our eventual direction in our Carnival glass hobby. I recall the many conventions that we went to, and we would go into their room to browse, and there you would find something for everyone. Their collection was so diverse and possibly the most unique in all of Carnival glass. And we are privileged to have among some of our pieces, several of the pieces that once graced their shelves. In keeping with the theme of this program, the Walmart crowd, something for everyone. HOGA and all Carnival associations, like Walmart, should provide for our members access to his or her particular fields of interest. Now, like most of you, when we began collecting Carnival glass back in 1984, we were, and we still consider ourselves to be, purists. That is, we only collect the old original Carnival glass that was made shortly after the turn of the century into the early 1930s. We joined several Carnival associations throughout the country, and we have seen those clubs grow in great numbers since the mid-'80s. And along with that growth, we have seen Carnival glass reach ever-increasing heights in popularity all over the world. And this popularity is not limited to Carnival associations, but thanks largely to the internet, individual collectors have sprung out all over the globe, somewhat diminishing the supply due to their heightened interest and demands. The value of our glass reached and continues to set new records. Think about it. As you visit the antique shops and malls today, those pieces that we once considered common and less desirable, depending upon our expendable income, have become increasingly difficult to find, and they're bringing unheard of prices. Today's younger generation of Carnival collectors have a much more difficult time than what most of us encountered when we first became collectors. And as the old Carnival glass becomes unavailable, many collectors began buying what we refer to now as late or contemporary Carnival glass. Even some of us purists have begun putting a piece or two among our favorite old pieces. Now, some of you may say, wait a minute, don't count me among those people. I don't collect contemporary Carnival glass. But think about it. If you support our Carnival associations today, you have arbitrarily become a contemporary Carnival collector. As an example, if you brought a room display to this convention, you got a room display award, a piece of new contemporary Carnival glass. Your being here at this banquet this evening ensures you're getting one of these beautiful party favors, a new piece of contemporary Carnival glass. Many of us support our various organizations and clubs by bidding on the beautiful Fenton whimsies like are over here on this table. Now, I don't know about you, but after all of the conventions that I have attended, our boxes of souvenir Carnival glass now number 3. So you see, many of Carnival's purist collectors now include the contemporary glass alongside their treasured old pieces. And in considering the glass that we wanted to bring for this presentation tonight, we wanted to encompass all areas of our collecting hobby. And our glass, as you can see, covers most categories in the field of Carnival collecting, as we have never concentrated on a single area of colors or makers or shapes or patterns. And we also like the unusual and some of the unlisted pieces, and you will see some of those in the glass presentation tonight. Now, we have organized our presentation into 5 categories, including our favorites, Carol's favorites, my favorites, some unusual and unlisted pieces, and some contemporary whimsies and one-of-a-kind contemporary whimsies. Now, as most of you know, my beautiful assistant, Carol, will not be joining me up here tonight due to her recovering from major surgery. And this all took place about a month or so ago, and it really happened as we were on a trip over into Farmington for the purpose of buying a new dress for Carol, because every time we do one of these, I have to buy her a new dress. And so she up and gets ill on me and, of course, has surgery. So I was confronted with finding somebody about Carol's height, somebody that could fit into a 6 petite dress. And so Gail Icorst was the one that I contacted. Gail is a dear friend of ours, and he readily agreed to assist me in the program tonight. So Gail, if you will come up here now, we will do the class portion of the program. Oh, he's already here. I thought you were back there, I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to start off with a few of our favorites. And the first piece that Gail is holding is a true rarity in Carnival glass. It is the trefoil fine-cut chop plate in marigold by Millersburg. Now, this has been in our collection for several years, and it's a product of one of our many antiquing trips in the mid-'80s. Frank Fenton stated when he first saw this piece that he had seen this piece in crystal, but had never seen it in Carnival glass. And he also said that he felt that this was perhaps an experimental piece, and that the iridescence was applied in what he referred to as a luster process. To date, none other has been reported, making this potentially an experimental piece and possibly a one-of-a-kind piece. And if you'll notice, the back pattern for this piece is the same as the back pattern for the many stars, bowls, and plates. Okay. The next piece that Gail is holding, Marion Hartung called this piece rock crystal. The same piece is shown in blue in Marion Clampkin's book on Carnival glass, and she calls the pattern Brookfield. Bill Edwards adds to the confusion. He shows a 6-inch plate in his book, and he calls the pattern Puritan, also known as rock crystal. It is a product of the McKee Glass Company of Jeannette, Pennsylvania. Now, Mrs. Clampkin dated this piece to around the Art Deco era of the 1930s, while Mrs. Hartung dated it around 1908 to 1912. It is a rather large and heavy combination egg and relish platter with scallops for 15 boiled or deviled eggs and a center for relishes. It is 11.5 inches across, and it weighs a bit over 4 pounds. The pattern on this piece is on the underside, and it consists of several intaglio stemmed flowers and leaves. Now, I have never seen another, and I would consider this to be a rare find. Okay, whether out of necessity because of my preferences or of her actual love for kerosene lamps, Carol has always been supportive and encouraging to me in my pursuit of kerosene lamps. And our collection now numbers, I'll have to change that, it was 17, but as of today it's 18. Among our favorites is Imperial Zipper Loop pattern, and we have 4 of these in our collection. The first that Gail is holding is the smallest of the stand lamps in marigold. And you'll notice Imperial had variations on the treatment of these lamps. This particular one has iridescence applied down through the oil container, and then it stops abruptly at the stem, which is left in crystal. You may find others that are iridized over the entire surface, and you will find them in smoke as well as marigold in Carnival glass. This may have been a little child's lamp, I don't know, perhaps a little study lamp or something. The next lamp that Gail is holding is in the same pattern, only it's a hand lamp, now referred to as a finger loop lamp. And this is one, I had always thought that this was a mid-size. I had been told for years, and there happened to be somebody at the convention here that is an expert. He said, this is the large size. So I had been mistaken all this time. But as you can see, this finger loop lamp has has beautiful iridescence applied over the entire surface. The next lamp is a medium-sized, which I had thought was the smallest size. Again, I was incorrect. This is a medium-sized lamp, and the gentleman who collects them says that he doesn't have one. He has the smallest and the largest, but not the medium-sized one. Again, the entire surface is iridized. Now, we have yet to find the very smallest one of these, and I understand that it is the most difficult to find, and perhaps the one that everybody's wanting to find. Okay, this interesting little miniature hurricane lamp that Gail is holding is in the daisy and button with thumbprint pattern in milk glass, and it has a very light golden iridescence. Now, daisy and button was one of those geometric patterns that was used extensively by various production companies. This is a variation that adds a series of thumbprints in vertical panels around the base and the shade. This lamp is just 8 3/4 inches tall with a shade that measures 4 1/2 inches, and it does feature a nutmeg burner. This pattern is attributed to the Adams and Company, which was established in 1885, and they later joined the U.S. Glass conglomerate. I'd always wanted one of these little rarities, and I was fortunate several years ago to purchase one offered at Gary Cooper's auction. It's the tiny hobnail lamp in marigold, and the maker still remains unknown to me. I saw the second one today that sold at the auction here. Now, these can be readily found in antique shops nationwide in crystal, but this is the second one now that I have seen in all of my search for Carnival lamps. It is considered relatively late in the Carnival era. Okay, rounding out the lamp category, Gail is now holding a lamp that we recently purchased that we know very little about. And you might surmise from its appearance that it was definitely made for common utility use. And we also brought a very common urn vase for comparison purposes so that you might see that this was definitely not made from a cut-down urn vase. Although they are very much alike as far as the overall stippling, you can readily see that a different mold was used for each of these two shapes. The lamp is much narrower in the shoulder in comparison to the urn vase. Other than that, the two shapes share a similar pattern of overall stippling and nothing to write home about iridescence. I would surmise that whomever made the urn vase also made the lamp. As with most Carnival glass collectors, the color red is one of our top favorites in Carnival glass. And Gail is now holding a 9-inch red vintage bowl by Fenton. This piece boasts excellent iridescence and a wonderful cherry red base. These red vintage bowls continue to soar in appreciation and not often put on the auction block. Okay, the next piece that Gail is holding is a red 9-inch orange tree bowl by Fenton. Now, Fenton's orange tree pattern was one of the most popular of all of their patterns, and this may have been due to the availability of this pattern in such numerous shapes and colors and sizes. The most rare colors are peach opalescent, aqua opalescent, and red, with surprisingly few examples found in amethyst. This 9-inch bowl is a good cherry red with a very good iridescence, and again, another one of our favorite pieces in the red category. The stippled raised pattern by Fenton was probably one of the most mass-produced patterns in their line of glassware. Imperial and Northwood also produced it. Stippled raised pieces can still be found on the antiquing circuit in a variety of shapes and colors. However, the Fenton Company did not produce a lot of it in the color of red. In red, they did produce 5 and 10-inch bowls, creamers and sugars, and these very rare 7-inch plates. There is only a handful known to exist in red. And as you can see, the iridescence on this plate is superb, and the base glass is as red as it gets. Okay, Gail is now holding what we consider to be among the top favorites of our collection, the candlesticks, Gail. They are Imperial's crucifix candlesticks, known only in marigold and Carnival glass, but found in a few colors in the uniridized glass. Now, these have been found in several editions of the Butler Brothers catalogs from 1906 through 1922, but no mention was ever made of these ever having been available in iridescent ware. In the January 1909 Imperial catalog, they were identified only as an item number, and they sold for 60 cents a dozen, again, only in crystal. Perhaps a special order of these was put into the factory, and only a few sets were iridized. And that might explain the rarity of these in Carnival glass compared to those found in crystal and milk glass. Golden Cupid. The next piece that Gail is holding is known as Golden Cupid. It is a product of either the Brockwitz Glassworks of Germany or the Ida Glassworks of Sweden. Now, this is a small berry bowl, and it has an intaglio design that is incised underneath, and that intaglio design is the only piece that is iridized on this and other pieces of the golden line. Now, Glenn and Stephen Thistlewood, in their new book, Carnival Glass, The Magic and the Mystery, attribute this piece to the Ida Works, stating that this method was characteristic of their production of glass. However, there was one Golden Cupid found that had a paper label on it marked Made in Poland. So they are continuing their study on these pieces. And yet another of the Golden series has recently surfaced. Gail is holding an 8.5-inch plate that we call Golden Berries. This piece is very similar to the Golden Pineapple and Blackberries plate shown in Bill Edwards' book. Now, this plate has a mixture of what appears to be blackberries and another fruit that we certainly have not been able to identify. So perhaps after the program, if some of you could come up here and have a look at it, you might be able to identify that fruit for us. Okay, the next piece that Gail will be holding is the beautiful Oriental Poppy Tankard by Northwood in ice blue. Now, this is one of Northwood's most popular tankards, and it comes in a variety of colors, including marigold, amethyst, green, cobalt blue, ice green, white, and ice blue. And it also comes in a lime green, and the ices normally command the higher prices in this piece. Now, this set is exceptionally pretty when it's displayed with a full complement of tumblers, and Carol and I missed out on that one that was in the auction today. I didn't even see it. We need 2 more, so sorry about that, huh? I just had to include this next piece that Gail is going to show you. It's an Amberina Holly Compote. And the reason I wanted to include it is due to the circumstances under which we acquired it. The owner of the antique shop where we bought this about a month ago was also a Carnival glass collector. And she was weeding out the marigold pieces in her collection and replacing them with the vivid colors. She thought that was a marigold piece. So the lesson to be learned here is that you must not ever accept at face value somebody's description of a piece of glass, either in shape or color. I would believe that the $90 price tag on that marigold piece was well worth it. Okay, we're going to talk about some of Carol's favorites, and among Carol's favorites are handled baskets. Now, Gail is holding a peach opalescent Caroline basket made by Dugan, and I would suspect that Dugan was a premier producer of most peach opalescent glassware. This particular pattern, Caroline, in the handled basket shape is really rarely seen, as most shapes produced were 7 and 10-inch bowls and a banana bowl. Now, Carol uses this and other handled baskets around the house to put her potpourri in. Another basket that probably tops Carol's favorites in handled baskets is the maple leaf basket that Gail is now holding. And little is known about this basket, as up until this latest book that Bill Edwards put out, it was not mentioned in any late books. I did find it listed in Sherman Hand's book on Carnival glass, and he attributed this piece to the Northwood Company based on the similarities of the beaded heart design. You know what? One rather unique feature of this basket is that, unlike most baskets whose handles are annealed, this basket actually has the handle design built into the glass. A pretty tough feat to accomplish, I would think. Of course, that adds very significantly to the structural strength of the piece. As you can see, the exterior is the portion that has the design, and there's a simple little maple leaf on the inside. I certainly don't believe this is a Northwood piece, as later books on Northwood do not make no mention of this pattern. Gail is now holding another of Carol's favorites. It's Imperial's Colonial Ladies Vase in marigold. This is another one of those real bargains that I found while making my regular antiquing rounds in Oklahoma City. And as I recall, after getting my expected discount, I walked away with this item after paying $22 for it. While the amethyst version of this pattern oftentimes commands more money than the marigold version, as Dave Doty astutely reported in his field guide to Carnival glass, the marigold example is the rarer of the two colors. The next piece certainly ranks high on Carol's list of favorites. It is Fenton's butterfly ornament in marigold. Now, this was originally a giveaway item that may have been attached to a handle of a basket or to a bowl as a premium to the lucky buyer. No one really knows how many of these little jewels were made, but not very many of them have survived. Since they were a giveaway item, they were not considered very dear or valuable, and they were more than likely given to some young child to play with. They come in a variety of colors, and they always draw a lot of interest when sold or auctioned off. And we display this little beauty alongside one of Westmoreland's earlier versions of a butterfly, the little small one. And then one of a couple of contemporary versions, one by Fenton, the dark amethyst one. Sorry, Gail. And the Westmoreland version, which is a pretty good sized one. Okay, Gail is now holding another of Carol's favorite pieces. It's a lady's hobnail spittoon by Millersburg. These useful spittoons were widely used by ladies of the turn of the century that indulged in chewing or dipping snuff. And most ladies kept this little piece from sight by cradling it under an arm, hidden under a cape or a jacket. And when it was time to unload, they would discreetly plunge an idle hand under their robe and, without exposing the spittoon, expectorate and stick it back into its cradling position. And then they would continue on with their social function. Carol has always had an affinity for Fenton's holly pattern, and we presently have 18 different colors in our collection, with still several more colors to go. But she wanted to bring her favorite from her bowl collection, and it's in the moonstone glass. Invariably, when we have a group of people over for the holiday celebrations, the subject of Carnival glass comes around, and just as invariably, Carol will always head to the hutch and start pulling out her holly bowls. And she always saves this one for last, because she considers this her best one. It is perhaps the most difficult to find next to the aqua opal, which is super rare. Okay, we're going to talk about some of my favorites. And Gail is now holding what I consider to be a highly treasured piece among my favorites. It is a tomahawk in blue made by the Cambridge Glass Company. Now, John Britt researched this piece, and in one of his articles, he attributed this to the Millersburg Company. Bill Edwards later explained that Cambridge and Millersburg had a very close working relationship, and that perhaps the Millersburg Company may have iridized these for the Cambridge Company. Perhaps Sherman Hand gives the most enlightening of all write-ups on this piece in his book of 1978. He recalled personally seeing these tomahawks, mostly in clear glass, in 10-pound wooden buckets of hard Christmas candy. He further stated that whenever the storekeeper opened one of these buckets and there happened to be a small child nearby, they most likely would have gotten these little tomahawks. That more than likely explains the rarity of their existence today, because they didn't survive the cowboy and Indian wars that those children played back in those days. I think in one Hoga survey made several years ago, there were 5 known in blue. And I believe a record bid price of $3,000 was set last year at the Whitley auction for a cobalt blue one. All right, Gail is now holding another of my favorites. It's a unique bowl in jadeite Carnival glass. The color is actually Nile green, but it's commonly referred to as jadeite, which is rarely seen in Carnival glass. Now, John Britt got me really excited about this bowl when I called him and was explaining it to him. He said that he had only seen a piece or two of iridized jadeite, and he suggested that I contact Frank Fenton, which I did. And Frank wanted me to take a picture of it. Well, I just sent him the bowl, and he and Barry Wiggins, who was the co-author of Northwood, The Wheeling Years, found this bowl in a 1922 U.S. glass catalog, and it was identified as pattern number 15314, and it was called Florentine. Both the interior and exterior are delicately iridized, which enhances rather than detracts from the natural beauty of the jadeite glass. I would certainly have to consider this a rare piece simply because the base glass is jadeite. I suppose what makes this next piece a favorite of mine is the fact that so little is known concerning the circumstances surrounding it. It too was a giveaway item, and there seems to be very little known as when or to whom these imperial paperweights were given. At any rate, these paperweights are only known in amethyst, and only a few of them are found today, and they're seldom offered or sold. Now, we display this imperial paperweight alongside another paperweight in the shape of a scarab, of which we have 2. Now, I feel strongly that this scarab paperweight is an old paperweight, and it should not be confused with the California beetles that are still being produced today, because there are significant differences. This scarab has a concave base and a highly pronounced dimple in the back, while the California beetle has a flat base and the dimple is not quite so pronounced. Isn't it rather strange how one's tastes are so varied in Carnival glass? My tastes have always run to the strange or the unusual or the odd pieces, and Gail is now holding such an example. It is the horsehead bookends, Gail. I'm sure that many of you have seen these horsehead bookends in antique shops in crystal all throughout the country. But how many have you seen that are iridized? Many of the shops advertise them as having been candy holders, while others refer to them as bookends, and I suppose that either of them may, or both of them may be correct, because they could have conceivably have had candy inside them, held in by a cardboard insert, and then later on used as bookends. Thank you, Joyce, for selling those to me. They have a rich sprayed-on iridescence, and we're really pleased to have them in our collection, although I don't know anything about them. As you're well aware, in our hunt for Carnival glass, we oftentimes come across a piece that strikes a note of familiarity in our minds when we see it. And Gail is now holding such a piece. It looks very similar to the pinch swirl spittoon by Dugan, but it varies significantly. It is a much thicker and heavier glass, and the base is considerably wider than that of the pinch swirl. And although I can't definitely attribute this to the Dugan company, its similarities are very consistent with Dugan's peach opalescent pieces. And I think Tom Burns, when he looked at it earlier, felt that it was probably a Dugan piece. If I had to select one piece out of all of our collection and rank it as my favorite piece, it would probably have to be the piece that Gail is now holding, Dugan's Farmyard Bowl. I think the beauty and the attention to detail of this piece leaves very little to be said about it. It certainly evokes memories of my childhood life on the farm. To me, it is a masterpiece. The 3 chickens scratching in the barnyard scene and the outstanding iridescence of this piece really pulls at my heartstrings. While it's not considered rare in the true sense of the word, these pieces are very scarce and they're seldom offered for sale. And I think at this convention you probably have seen more farmyard bowls than any convention that you would normally go to. John has 3 in his room. Okay, we're going to talk about a few previously unreported pieces in Carnival glass. The whirligig, you got it? Okay. Gail is holding a previously unreported pattern. We found this toothpick in William Heacock's 1,000 toothpick holders. Minnie Cam named the piece, and she calls it whirligig. But she said it was actually a miniature spooner to a toy table set. And she attributed it to the U.S. Glass Company, but she offered no proof of that attribution. It was reported only in crystal, so when this little clam broth piece was iridized is anybody's guess. And when we found that piece, we found a little piece next to it called whirligig. And we also found this in the 1,000 toothpick holders. And the pattern name was given by researcher S.T. Millard, and it was called Euclid. Mr. Millard stated that the maker was unknown, but he dated it around 1910 since it appeared in a Butler Brothers catalog that year. So here again we have an unlisted piece in Carnival glass with no attribution. Referred to as Cherub in Dave Doty's new book, this piece is also identified in Heacock's 1,000 toothpick holders and given the name Peekaboo by Sandra McPhee Stout, and she states in her book, The Complete Book of McKee Glass, that this toothpick holder appeared in McKee's catalog and dated it around 1910 to 1920. It was made in crystal, amber, and blue, but again, none reported in iridescent ware. That is the second one of those that I have seen. I know Eleanor and Jack have one. And the next item that Gail is holding is another little piece that I know absolutely nothing about. It was a piece that John Britt had in his collection, and he evidently had been doing some research on it. For when we bought it, it still had labels with numbers and all sorts of information about it. It very much looks like a little tub, and I think the consensus is that it was a salt dip. But we have not found it in any of the books that we have in our possession. It's still one of those mysteries that there will be a lot of mysteries solved someday. All right, we're going to talk now about a very few contemporary and some one-of-a-kinds. And Gail is now holding a whimsy piece that we got here at Hoga in 1998. And now, what makes this piece so extra special is that it was flattened out from those votive candles that were the party favors that we got that year. Now, as you know, Mr. Fenton occasionally takes a few remaining pieces from a convention, of the commemorative pieces or party favors, and he turns them over to his artisans back at the factory. Now, I don't know what the ground rules are, but I think they're allowed to make whimsies from them, and they decorate them to be sold here at the convention. And I also think they have sort of a contest to see which of their creations brings the top dollar in the auction. This plum opalescent piece is hand decorated and signed by J.K. Spindler, and it enjoys a prominent place alongside our traditional carnival glass. Gail is now holding a contemporary basket that was made by Fenton for the Woodsland Worldwide Carnival Convention in Las Vegas this past year. The pattern is called Woodsland Pine, and the color is sea mist green. Now, there were 340 plates made and only 40 whimsies, so naturally Carol and I opted to buy one of the whimsies. The Woodsland Glass Association is an internet association that boasts over 600 members as of the 1st of this month. If any of you have internet access, you may find the information on Woodsland's daily emailing to your interest. And they also have many color photos, and they provide information on impending auctions and conventions. And they also provide a place where you can send your pictures to be identified either as to pattern or maker or whatever. Okay, Gail is now holding another unique piece of carnival glass in contemporary carnival. It is a teal opalescent bale that was made by the Fenton Art Glass Company for Hoga, and this one honored Thomas Dugan. There were 5 bales made, as you know, I believe that's right, Bob, 5. Okay, this is a whimsy bale that was made for one of our conventions to be sold after the banquet program. Now, I had noticed in the preview of the glass that Frank Fenton kept picking this little piece up, just as I had done, and looking it over real close. As luck would have it, Frank was sitting at a table just in front of us when this piece came up for bidding. And the bidding was pretty heated. And it finally came down to just Frank and me that were bidding on it. And I noticed while we were bidding on it, Frank kept turning around and looking over his shoulder and smiling at somebody standing up in the back of the room. Eventually, the bidding stopped and we got the bale. And when they brought this bale back and they set it on our table, Frank looked shocked. And immediately after the program was over, he came up to me and said, "If I had known that was you bidding on that bale, you wouldn't have got it. I thought it was my buddy back there in the back of the room that got it." This was a one-of-a-kind. The bales normally are rounded. This one has been ruffled, and you'll see that it's teal opalescent. He confirmed that it was a one-of-a-kind bale. And of course, that makes this bale really extra special to us. Rounding out the contemporary one-of-a-kind carnival whimsies is another unique piece of carnival glass. Now, Gail is now holding a piece whose shape is familiar to all of us. It too was made by Fenton to be sold at the Hoga banquet, and it's another one-of-a-kind piece. Now the difference in this piece is the color called sage green by Fenton. It reportedly is the only spittoon made from this particular batch of glass with a Hoga commemorative on it. You know, whenever we go to a convention, we try to pick up a commemorative piece, for it helps the many associations in deferring the expenses of putting on one of these conventions. And I like to think at some point in time that these commemoratives and these whimsies will have been a good investment on my part. Maybe something that our children or our grandchildren or maybe our great-grandchildren will benefit from. You know, it's my understanding that many of the Fenton collectors will readily purchase these little party favors that you have right now in your room displays, because the only access that they have to them is through you and through your attendance at these conventions. That's it, isn't it, Gail? I've noticed that some of you have been nervously looking at your watches and glancing at the exit doors, so Gail and I will close our presentation. Should any of you want to look at some particular piece up here that we didn't discuss, please feel free to come up after the program is over, after the auction is over, and we'll be glad to discuss it with you. My point in bringing all of this glass was to bring out the point that Carnival glass does offer a lot of various choices in your collecting hobby. We Carnival glass collectors, while our taste and direction in collecting are very wide, we have a common bond. We enjoy that special piece of molten silica that was formed by the masters into all sorts of shapes and sizes and different colors and the beautiful iridization. But first and foremost, I think we enjoy the sharing of our glass with one another. We enjoy the friendship and the camaraderie that we experience when we come to conventions such as this. And I would like to close the program and leave you with some of these thoughts. For many of us, our Carnival glass hobby is an escape back into time. As we look at the beauty of this glass that was made nearly 100 years ago, it allows us to revisit those days in our country's history when our nation was just beginning to emerge as a recognizable world power. We have now entered into the 21st century. There may be several members represented here tonight that feel just as strongly about the Carnival glass that was reissued from the old molds, and they actively seek that glass, and they seek the late or the contemporary glass with just as much fervor as what we seek, or how we seek the old glass. Look at the wide range of glass represented here on these risers tonight. The wide arrays of choices available to you as a collector are immense. A collection of Carnival glass can be based on any number of avenues: colors, makers, shapes, rarities, whimsies, lettered pieces, utility wear, oddities, or like Carol and me, you might try to collect just a little bit of it all and put it in with your collection. But regardless whether your interest is in the old or the late glass, whether it leans toward a specific pattern, color, shape, or maker, whether it leans toward the rare or the common, or perhaps to the whimsies or the unlisted pieces, like Walmart, Carnival glass offers something for everyone. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.